Challenging, thought-provoking, insightful. This is God in Country, the collision of faith and politics, hosted by nationally known speaker, Reverend Dr. Shawn Michael Greener. Not your typical Rev. Dr. Shawn is a proud military veteran, former law enforcement officer, and founder of the internationally regarded Executive Protection Team. Through counseling, elite life coaching, and national speaking, this ninja pastor tells it like it is. This series is biblically and politically engaged with the pedal to the metal. With today's edition of God in Country, here is host and author of the acclaimed yet controversial book, Excellence Killed the Church: How Mediocrity is Destroying America, Dr. Shawn Michael Greener.
How about now? Nope. All right, how about now? Can you all hear me now? Hey, Craig up in upstate New York, maybe you can hear me now. I don't know. We don't know why. Everything is the same, but it just clicked on all the buttons and for whatever reason. You guys hear me now? I just got cut now. Awesome. There we go. Well, I'll repeat everything I said, and it was amazing, so I'll have to repeat it, right? So tonight's message, something really fishy is going on here. Tonight's message is dedicated to the Chris Cahalan and the Ellingson Cahalan family, the Sellers and Summers family, Jane Oates Parker, Karen Marie Bertelli, and also thank you to Joe Konchnick for your great support, and to all of our friends, our new friends, from all the way from Florida to Maine, France to Syria. Hit us up if you want to support what we do on Dr. Shawn Greener, DrShawnGreener.com, at the Ninja Pastor on Twitter. I'm on Quora. We're on Google+, all that blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so just to say what I said before is, as Happy Mother's Day to everybody, both here and around the world. But I wanted to say, I love the sound of military aviation. That's a military joke going over. I wanted to say that, and thank you to chat and everybody who was sending me messages saying, hey, we can't hear you unless you're talking really quiet. A lot of people sent me messages about the message week before last, the second half of that. Did you post that or whatever? You're going to preach that tonight. And I was. That was my game plan until about 2:30 today. And then I was reflecting on a conversation with my buddy Chris Cahalan, who, of course, is dealing with some of the just toughest stuff ever. And, you know, even if you're facing a terminal illness, you still have to go on living. And I've had conversations with my unique situation with different people, and they say, you have such a positive outlook. You're so happy. And I am happy because life goes on. Life doesn't stop.
And we don't die.
And we don't die. You know, if we're believers, we don't die. So my buddy Chris and I were having this great conversation about the prayer of Jonah. And in the process of that prayer of Jonah thing, I just kept reading it over and over and over. You know, we give away, just so you know, and my buddy Joe, I can't thank you enough. Of course, you know Joe, great guy, really, really great guy. And he was very generous to kind of sow into what we do. But the Bible thing, I may or may not have a problem. Now that we've sent one to Syria, a war zone, successfully, now I'm like, well, where are the other war zones? Let's send more. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I'll deliver them, you know? And but you got to give me a gun. I'm not going into war zone without a gun, you know. Have gun, will travel. And so I'm really loving that. I'm really, really loving that. But I'm loving also the fact that people are catching on to the value of that. Well, all that said to say this, we give a Bible, we give a $60 Bible. Our cost is $60 per Bible. You might say, well, you're paying too much for your Bibles. The Word is the Word, but look, I want them to have a quality Bible with Smythe binding and all that. I want it to be leather. I want it to be sturdy. I want the paper to be good, to stand the test of time. Maybe you know, when they're able to get a Bible, another Bible, they'll give that Bible to somebody, or they'll, you know, that'll be the standard. The point of it is I have that Bible by the case, you know, we buy, but also I have the complete Jewish Bible study Bible. And it was interesting to me because I can't read the printed Bible. I have it on all my electronic devices. But when I'm laying in bed, I can't, even with the light on at nighttime, I can't read. The light's not right for me to read my printed Bible. And this week, after my conversation with my buddy Chris, I said, man, I really want to, by the way, hello to our friends in Alaska and Hawaii. We're praying for you guys. Also in Tennessee, or as they would say, Tennessee, and also Arkansas. We have people listening from all those places right now, and that is pretty cool. The point of all of it is I'm trying to read my complete Jewish study Bible in bed, and the light's just not good enough for me to read it. So I relegated to the electronic device, and which is just not the same. Let's agree that it's just not the same. And so Chris and I had this conversation about the prayer of Jonah. And I remember in seminary, and I remember in other occasions where I was going to preach on this, that a lot of things stood out to me. And I thought, when I'm talking to Chris about this prayer of Jonah, things are real bad when you're in the belly of a fish. I'm just saying. Can we agree with that? Has everybody got an amen? You end up in the belly of a fish, stuff has gotten bad. And smelly, I'm assuming. And so I was reading this Jonah, and I've read it I don't know how many times. I like the book of Jonah. So some things came to mind as I was reading it, and the only reason I was reading it at that particular time was my buddy Chris and I are having this late night, as we often do, late night conversation on not just Jonah, but life, life in general, and interpersonal relationships, familial relationships, dealing with struggles with people and emotions and all of those things. And so that got me fired up. And so I decided, well, let me just go on, and I'm just going to, so 2:30 this afternoon, let me just go on and preach on this. The word of Adonai came to Jonah, which is, just so you know, Jonah is Jonah. Sounds a lot. You guys, if you've listened to my other show, The Collision of Faith and Politics, then I've interviewed Tamar Yonah. Tamar Yonah, IDF, she's a great interviewer over in Israel, and she's just a fantastic person. But her name means something, and it's Yonah. Well, it's Jonah, really. But in Hebrew, it's Yonah. The word of Adonai came to Yonah, the son of Amittai. Set out for the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim to it that their wickedness has come to my attention. Not for nothing, but the word of Adonai, that's God. But Jonah, in order to get away from Adonai, I would remind you, Jonah, is a prophet. But he wants to get away from God. In order to get away from Adonai, prepared to escape to Tarshish. We're going to talk about these different places. He went down to Yaffo, found a ship headed for Tarshish, paid the fare, and went aboard, intending to travel with them to Tarshish and get away from Adonai. However, Adonai let loose over the sea a violent wind. We're going to talk more about that too, which created such stormy conditions that the ship threatened to break to pieces. The sailors were frightened, and each cried out to his God. They threw the cargo overboard to make the ship easier for them to control. Meanwhile, Jonah had gone down below into the hold where he lay fast asleep. Now, we're going to talk about that, and I understand why, maybe that would slip. Thank you, by the way, to the people confirming now that you can hear. I appreciate that. I don't know if how long you've been in the church, air quotes, but you may have had a Sunday school class where they talked about the whale and all this stuff. We'll talk more about that in a minute too. Not by much, because it's not, whether it's a whale or the species doesn't matter. It ultimately doesn't matter. You'll see where it originated and all that. That's what matters. But not for nothing, but if the seas are bad and you're trying to get away from God, which is a stupid pursuit, we can all testify that it's probably not what any of us should do. But if you're trying to get away from God, and, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on this boat and I'm going to get away. But then suddenly, the storms are horrible, but he's asleep. He's down in the hold, which means underneath, fast asleep. Bible even says fast asleep. So that, I don't know if that's ever occurred to you, but there's a big storm. You're probably not going to take a nap. You're probably going to be awake and nervous. Well, there's a purpose behind why he was asleep. We'll talk more about that in a little bit too. By the way, shout out to Susan. We miss you, and we'll be eager for your return. The ship's captain found him and said to him, "What do you mean by sleeping? Get up, call on your God. Maybe the God will remember us and we won't die." Now, I will say this, put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that, because what he said, very important. Very, very important. Then they said to each other, "Come, let's draw lots to find out who is to blame for this calamity." They drew lots, and Jonah was singled out. Now, let me just say this. People don't think, put a pin in that, I'm on just about middle of verse 8. So if I forget where I am, you remind me. It's a lot of responsibility, I know. people talk about Bible characters as though they are somehow Bible times. Everybody walked around with their hands pressed together in the praying pose, and everybody's haircut was just right, their shoes were just right, their outfit was right, the hair wasn't too long. They ate the right things, they said the right things in the right way. They, of course, never got mad unless it was righteous anger. And, they say, well, because I say good luck to people. Hey, good luck. Like my buddy Shawn, he has this amazing car. He was in this car show thing. And, let's face it, the car's amazing. But I say, hey, good luck. Well, he didn't say to me, hey, whoa, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I don't believe in luck. But listen, you don't know how many times when I was a kid that in my independent fundamental KJV only Baptist church, I was told, don't say good luck. We don't say good luck. Oh, darn, sorry about that. Oh, whoa, hey, we don't say darn, because that's just a derivative of damn. And, oh, heck, I'm sorry I did that. Whoa, hey, don't say heck, because that's a derivative of hell. God knows what you mean. Well, I didn't know that, but okay, whatever. And then, of course, they didn't say anything to whatever, but I was very respectful. I was mostly quiet as a kid, as you would probably figure. But I was very respectful. Anyway, the point of all this is drew lots. They cast lots. You hear that a lot in the Bible. Because in this time, it was not a monotheistic. The thing that made believing in God, or Adonai Elohim, believing in him, was because it was a very mystical society. Many of these different groups, including the Hebrew people, believed in many gods. They didn't just believe in one. That's why this was such a big deal. Oh, one God? First of all, what are we having a sale? You only got one. Hey, I could have done better. I should have negotiated the how many gods. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's just the one God. That was a big deal. But they did cast lots. They did, bet. They did gamble. They did all these things. And these aren't just the bad people. These are also church folk, Remember when Yeshua was casting tipping over the tables and at the temple and all that stuff? There's all this stuff, money changing and all this stuff going on. That was a normal thing. So just so you know, when you hear this is not some really bad person. Let's draw lots to find out who is to blame for this calamity. You say, well, what was drawing lots going to do? Like, okay, it's you, heads or tails. You pick heads, you're the guy. Tails, you're not the guy. It's like the witch thing, right? If they float, either they are a witch or they're not a witch. I don't know which. I said that on purpose, by the way. I don't know which. Comedy. So they drew lots, and Jonah was singled out. So Jonah is singled out. They draw lots. They're making this gamble deal. And it turns out, the needle points to him, whatever the case may be. I don't know if they took chicken bones and threw them, and wait, these are in the shape of Jonah. See, he looks just like him. I don't know how they did it. Doesn't matter how they did it. They drew lots, and Jonah was singled out. Well, it was accurate too, wasn't it? Here's why. They said to him, tell us now, why has this calamity come upon us? What work do you... First of all, you're going to ask the guy asleep, right, during the big storm? Big storms come up, it's going to kill them all, they said. We're all going to die. And then, I tell you what, let's go talk to the guy that's asleep down here to tell us why this is happening. Why has this calamity come upon us? What work do you do? Where are you from? What is your country? Which is your people? Why did they ask those specific questions? Do you ever ask yourself that? What are they doing? Are they just panicking? Are they just rattling off questions? No. These are critical questions. Tell us now, because it's important, why has this calamity come upon us? They're going to this guy. There's the casting of lots has said, this is the guy that knows the answer. This is the guy that the problem's coming from. Why has it come upon us? What work do you do? Listen, your occupation in this space and time was critically important. It was critically important. Where you stood in life, where you stood in the community, it was all critically important. Then he asked, where are you from? Where you're from is a big deal. Oh, that is Jonah of such and such. That's Jerry of, Pennsylvania. Jerry from PA. See, I knew where you were from because that's what you say. I'm a country boy from Sussex County, Delaware, right? So that's who I am. Where you came from, your people, it was important. Where are you from? What is your country? Which is your people, right? Because, depending on what people you are, you either might be, hey, this guy's a good guy. He's a member of this tribe. He's one of these people. Or, real problem. This guy's a real problem. Let's toss him now without any further discussion. These are all important questions. And he answered them, he being Yonah or Jonah. And I want you to take note of the order that he answers these. This is important. It's not a small thing. And I want you, in the back of your mind, as I'm reading this, to realize that he's saying this in the order that he's saying it on purpose. He's saying these things in the order that he's saying it on purpose. He's running from God. We already know that he's running from Adonai, because Adonai has asked him, God has asked him to do something, has told him to do something that he didn't want to do. We'll talk about that in a second. I think it's fascinating. The reality of this is very, very fascinating. He answered them. Number one, I am a Hebrew. I'm a Jew. And I fear Adonai. And yet he's running from him. The God of heaven, who made both the sea and the dry land. Now he's testifying and preaching a little bit. Why? Because these aren't all Jews. These aren't all Hebrews on this boat. These are people from all over, and they're seafaring people. They're rough and tumble people. And he's calling it out. I am a Hebrew. That's my people. Those are my people. That's my culture. And I fear Adonai. That's my God. The God of heaven, who made both the sea and the dry land. Why does he say that? Listen, during this time, the God you feared the most, the one that you knew was, air quotes, real, that was the God that could calm the sea. Because the sea was this mysterious, mystical thing. You couldn't breathe underwater. Right? The sea come up and swallow you up. There's things in the sea that would swallow you up. So they're like, he controls this. That's something special. And he testifies right away. Yonah testifies right away. I am a Hebrew, and I fear Adonai, the God of heaven, who made both the sea and the dry land. Verse 10, and at this, the men grew very afraid and said to him, what is this that you have done? Now, why at this point were they so afraid? Were they afraid because it's God? Oh, Hebrew God, man, those are powerful. Not really. That was part of it. That was like an ancillary thing. The biggest thing they were afraid of is, this God of yours can control the sea? By his will, he can make it rough, or he can make it calm? Whew! That's a real God right there. What is it that you have done? He asked him this. What is it? The men said to him, what is it that you have done? For the men knew he was trying to get away from Adonai, or God, since he had told them. They asked him, what should we do to you so that the sea will be calm for us? For the sea was getting rougher all the time. Now this is what he says. This is what Jonah says. Tell me if you're this kind of person. I don't know, maybe you are. Maybe there are more Jonahs. Jonah gets a bad rap because, he didn't do what God said, and then he tried to run, getting on this boat, gets tossed off the whale, yada, yada. But through all of this, he is testifying. We cannot miss the fact that Jonah really believed and really respected God. It wasn't that he didn't respect him. It wasn't really even that he thought he could run from him. And I think that's why he was asleep. He was asleep because he's like, I might as well just die. Maybe, in my sleep, the seas will swallow me up. That's what I deserve. But let's face it, he was mad at God. And I don't know about you, if you've ever been mad at God. Some people have told me, I've never, ever been mad at God. And I say to them, I'll pray for your lying. Your problem with lying. I'll pray for you. Because listen, you haven't lived much life unless there's a point in time where you're like, God, why? Why is this happening? I look at my buddy Chris, man of great faith. I look at all my friends that have had cancer, people of great faith. I look at the people that have died of varying things. I look at little children that die, really what we've been talking about over the past several weeks, these injustice, these deaths and this sickness. And I think, why, God, why is this happening? We don't have a big fight. It's not a big thing because I know he'll win. the point of it is you still get mad, you still get mad and you ask why. For the sea was getting rough at the time. Pick me up, he told them, and throw me into the sea. Now I'm going to ask you something. Why didn't he just climb over the railing and just jump in? Take a running start maybe. Just throw me in. You pick me up and throw me in. Have you ever thought about that? He said, pick me up. Not like, hey, time out, guys. I tell you what'll fix this. Clear the way on the deck. I just need a little room to get a running start because it's pitching and rolling on this deck. The storm is really bad. But I'm gonna run. I'm gonna jump over the rail, and I'm gonna fall in the water or jump in the water. All will be well. But he doesn't do that, and he doesn't say that. He says, pick me up, told them, and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will be calm for you, because I know it's my fault that this terrible storm has come over you. Now, this is contrary to a lot of thinking nowadays. A lot of thinking, people say, oh, this bad thing. There are people, and most often they're wrong. It's bad theology. Well, this bad thing is happening to you because you're doing this or you're not doing that. So God has this button, which he does. I don't think it's a button. It may be a switch, or I don't know what it is. Maybe a touch screen on a computer. I'm not sure what it is, but whatever it is he has, he can do it if he wants to. He can point to whatever, or not even point, just look at or think, whoosh, and it happens. We only live by his grace. We only live by his leisure. It's like the President of the United States, but much bigger. You serve at the leisure of the President, at the will of the President. He wants you gone, doesn't like the look of your shirt, you're gone. I'm not absolutely positive my outfit matches, so he might look at me and go, you know what, Greener, you can't dress. You're out of here. And that's how it is. That's just what it is. Same way with God. If he wants to be like that, nothing's holding him back from doing that. He's God. He created all this. He can do all this, then he can do whatever he wants. But he is a just and good God. Bottom line is this, because I know it's my fault that this terrible storm has come over you. Now, God didn't kill anybody on the boat that we know of. It wasn't mentioned here in the story. But what we do know is they were scared. We also know that they were of other faiths. We don't know. I'm going to go into a little more depth for just a couple minutes on that in a little bit. But what we know is they were moved by the fact that he was a Hebrew and that his God, whom he feared, who controls the sea and the dry land, is Adonai. We know that they've been witnessed to, they've been preached to. This big thing is happening not just to Jonah, it's also happening to them. They are experiencing this potential calamity, this moment in time, because this guy over here, this prophet, was running from his orders, what God told him to do, fruitlessly, I know, but listen, let's be honest, come on. How many of us have run from God thinking we could get away? They climb underneath a tree, who won't see me here? Well, I made the tree, I don't know if you're aware of that, If we're being honest, all of us have at some point or another. So, nevertheless, the men rowed hard trying to reach the shore, but they couldn't because the sea kept growing wilder against them. Finally, they cried to Adonai. Now, I want to stop there for a second. Remind me I'm at verse 14 if I forget. They don't throw Jonah into the water. Did you pick up on that? They didn't initially. He's saying, look, I'm this is who I am. This is my God. This is what he controls. And the reason this is happening is because, I didn't do the right thing. Just pick me up and throw me in the sea. The sea will be calm for you because I know it is my fault that this terrible storm is. But they didn't do it right away. Anybody ever think why? Maybe. Why didn't they immediately throw the guy in the sea? Now they came to him and said, hey, we cast lots. It came to you. The needle pointed to you. The chicken bones made your face. Whatever the case may be. The card that was drawn. I don't know. Whatever. How they did it. Bottom line is, it came to you. So tell us why this is happening. What have you done? Who are you? Where are you from? All this stuff. And yet they didn't do it. He said, look, you throw me into the sea, you're all good. I don't know what that says about Jonah. Maybe Jonah was not as believable. Maybe they figured, that's a crazy story. I know. A little bit crazy. Tell you what, let's do. Let's just row a little harder. Isn't that how we are in life sometimes? I'll just work harder. I talk to people all the time, and one friend in particular, they just think if I just work harder, all this other stuff is going to go away. If I just work harder, already the hardest worker I think I've ever known, if I just work harder, it'll all go away. I'm just going to put my nose to the grindstone and it'll all go away. No problem. We're all good. We think if we just row harder, the opposite direction of where we're supposed to go, polar opposite direction of where we're supposed to go, then all will be okay. Here's the thing, it very rarely ever is. The men rowed hard. They tried to reach the shore, but they couldn't because the sea kept growing wilder against them. It didn't say the sea kept growing wilder against Jonah. It's the sea kept growing wilder against them. I'll say this about that. Sometimes you need other people to help you. That's why, air quotes, church, kehalah, the gathering, whatever it is you call it, is so important. That's why having friends of faith so important. My buddy Dave and I are super, super close. One of the best friends I've ever had in my whole life. My buddy Dave and I keep each other accountable. We can't BS, or I guess it's BF, bovine feces, each other at all. There's no way. He can't BF me, and I can't BF him, because neither of us are we've been around a little bit. And we have worship. We have prayer time. We have worship, but it's not like church worship, you know. It's just a whole different animal. But here's the thing. Sometimes he needs me to say, hey, buddy, I think you got stinking thinking here going on here. And sometimes he'll go, yo, dog, you ain't right on this one. You're right about a lot of things, but you ain't right on this one. Let me just testify. You ain't right on this one. It's time to think a different way. And we still love each other. We're being real with each other. Sometimes you need another person to reach down and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to help you out because it's clear you on the wrong track, brother. Let me just walk ahead of you on this railroad track. I'm going to push this switcher, but you got to do something and I got to do something. We got to do something here to help this situation. Sometimes that's the way it is, and sometimes it is wholly and completely on us. And I think you probably remember times where someone came alongside you, helped you out. You didn't like them at the time, but they helped you out. They spoke to you. They spoke into your life. And you changed a direction that you really needed to change, or some big fish going to come along and eat you up. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Finally, they cried to Adonai. Now, I want you to understand something. They weren't Hebrew. They didn't believe in God, the God of you know, they weren't suddenly going, whoa, this is our new God. They had many gods. They believed in many things. Some didn't believe in any God, but these mystical things, this is how it was. This is what the deal was back then. But they change and they say, they cried to Adonai, they, not Jonah, these ship people, they cried to Adonai, please, Adonai, please, don't let us perish for causing the death of this man, and don't hold us to account for your shedding of innocent blood, because you, Adonai, have done what you saw fit. Now, they are praying now. They are speaking to the God. They haven't had a conversion moment, so to speak. They haven't gone through class 1 and 2 of how to be like a Christian, talk like a Christian, and all that. So they didn't know, but they were just talking directly to him, because they knew if he can control the sea, then good lands, they can certainly control this out. But they didn't. I asked you, why didn't they throw the guy in? Why didn't they throw the guy? Guy tells them, hey, you just throw me in, we're good to go. Because they were afraid of shedding innocent blood. They were afraid of shedding innocent blood because you, Adonai, have done what you saw fit. Then they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea. And the sea stopped raging. Seized with a great fear of Adonai, they offered a sacrifice to Adonai and made vows. Immediately they recognized, okay, this is what happened, and this is what we did, and this is what happened. This was the result of it. And they said, clearly, this is God. Now, did they turn from all their other gods, their mystical gods? I don't know. It doesn't tell us all about that. But it does tell us that there was a prayer that was uttered by Adonai. Now, I'll go on. I'll pick up the pace here because I don't want to run out of time. Adonai prepared a huge fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. From the belly of the fish, Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God. Now, can I just say this? Let me just say this. And this is to be fair to you. I have 11 years of postgraduate education. I've got multiple doctorates. One of them's theology, Hebrew world, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a rip. If you send me an email, well, now, was it, Dr. Shawn, was it a whale, or was it a big fish, or was it a sea monster? I mean, what are we talking here? Because I subscribe to, I don't care what you subscribe to. You would call it a big fish, you call it a minnow, you call it whatever you want. I don't care what it is. What I know is it was big enough to swallow a human being, and that human being could live inside. You say, well, that sounds kind of hokey. Whatever, dude. God can do whatever he wants. If you think that you can limit God by the powers and the limitations and the measurements here on earth, you got another thing coming. So from the belly of the fish, Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God. He said, out of my distress I called to Adonai, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you threw me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood enveloped me. All your surging waves passed over me, and I thought, I have been banished from your sight. But I will again look at your holy temple. The water surrounded me, threatened my life. The deep closed over me. Seaweed twined around my head. I was going down to the bottoms of the mountains, to a land whose bars would close me in forever. But you brought me up alive from the pit, Adonai, my God. As my life was ebbing away, I remembered Adonai, and my prayer came into you, into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols give up their source of mercy. But I, speaking my thanks, and I have another dear friend who's a pastor, she reminded me of that verse. That's one of her favorite verses. Those who worship vain idols give up their source of mercy. But I, speaking my thanks aloud, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed. I will pay. Salvation comes from Adonai. Then Adonai spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out onto dry land. Now, I'm just gonna read a little bit of the next chapter. The word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. Set out for the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim it to the message I will give you. This is strong right here. So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh, as Adonai had said. Now he could have cut to the chase, couldn't he? He could have cut to the chase. Instead of going against God, he should have just done what he told him to do. Here's your mission, Jonah. You want to know what to do with your life, Christian, believer, messianic believer, whatever you call yourself? You want to know what to do with your life? You say, well, what am I going to do? Tell you what, don't do the opposite. So here's the thing. Jonah set out, went to Nineveh, as Adonai had said. Now Nineveh was such a large city, it took 3 days just to cross it. Jonah began his entry into the city and had finished only his first day of proclaiming. And this is what he's saying. He's going to this city, right? These are wicked, wicked people. These people are crazy up in here. They're nuts. They are all nut jobs. They're doing the opposite of what God commanded to do. They were just bad people. They were in total and complete, just utter disarray. And this is what God gives, Adonai gives Jonah to say to these people. In 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown. When the people of Nineveh believed God, they proclaimed a fast and put on a sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least. Now, unlike Jonah, they listened. They listened right away. Oh, this dude is telling us, by the way, he smells like fish. We didn't want to say anything. He's telling us that our city in 40 days is going to be overthrown? Well, we better believe that. And so they immediately put on sackcloth. They didn't wait around. Well, we don't want to smell like he smells. They put on the sackcloth and the ashes, and from the greatest to the least. And when the news reached the king of Nineveh, he got up from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. He then had this proclamation made through Nineveh. By decree of the king and his nobles, no person or animal, herd or flock is to put anything in his mouth. They are neither to eat nor drink water. They must be covered with sackcloth, both people and animals, and they are to cry out to God. with all their might. Let each of them turn from his evil way and from the violence they practice. Who knows? Maybe God will change his mind, relent, and turn from his fiery anger, and then we won't perish. Now, the message was not, I want you to be clear on this. Here's the message to them. It was this simple. In 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown. It didn't say, unless you do this, unless you do that, unless you cut your hair a certain way, wear certain clothes, talk a certain way, whatever. Unless you do that. No, he said, in 40 days, you're going to be overthrown. Life as you know it is going to change dramatically. But then the king says, it gets all the way to the king of Nineveh, and he says, by degree of the king and his nobles, no person around him will hurt a flock. He goes on to say, hey, do this, sackcloth, ashes, the whole deal, you and your animals and all that stuff. Don't eat, nothing. That's what we do. And he says, who knows? Maybe God will change his mind, relent, and turn from his fierce anger, and then we won't perish. He didn't know for sure. He had no guarantee, but that seemed right to him. Based on the culture, the tradition, all these things, that seemed right to him. It seemed right for him to completely humble himself before God. As a people, to humble themselves before God. When God saw by their deeds that they had turned from their evil way, he relented and did not bring on them the punishment he had threatened. But this, now come on, this right here, if you've never caught this, but this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he became angry. Now hold on a second. This prophet, after all of what he went through, trying to avoid telling these people, hey, this is going to happen to you, he's like, God, what's up with this? These people are terrible people. Oh, they're all sorry now, sackcloth and ashy and all that stuff? Okay, and so you don't do this to them? What, are you kidding me? He prayed to Adonai. I don't think he actually said, what are you kidding me? But I'm going to tell you what he actually said. Now, Adonai, didn't I say this would happen when I was still in my own country? That's why I tried to get away to Tarshish ahead of time. I knew you were a God who is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, and rich in grace, and that you relent from inflicting punishment. Therefore, Adonai, please, just take my life away from me. It's better for me to be dead than alive. Adonai asked, is it right for you to be so angry? What was Jonah mad at? Jonah was mad that these people didn't get what was coming to them. In fact, it was the opposite was true. He rewarded them, these people, he rewarded them for doing what they did, for being so sincere in what they were doing. I'm sure they didn't do everything perfect because they were human. They didn't do everything perfect. I'm sure along the way there was one person or two people that might not have done it exactly how, oh, you didn't put the right amount of sackcloth on. Oh, that brand of the brand of sackcloth, and that's so yesterday. That's so last month or last year. You know, I'm sure somebody didn't use the right ashes, whatever. Oh, your ashes are supposed to be from this guy. You know, who knows? There's always somebody in the crowd, right? Oh, you didn't do this right. But God saw fit because he saw their heart, the goodness of their heart. He saw that their heart was changed. He saw that their heart was driving toward good. After this happened, do you really think these people from Nineveh, do you really think these people suddenly became perfect? It's a real question. Ask yourself the question. It's okay if you go, I don't know. I'll answer it for you. You know, I have 11 years postgraduate education. I'll answer it for you. I don't know either. I know, that tripped you up, didn't you? You thought I was going to have some big theological answer? But my guess is they probably didn't. Why? Because we are people that are jacked up. There's nothing new in us versus them. They had their stuff, we have our stuff. Hurts, habits, and hang-ups. They had them then, we have them now. We're not perfect, neither were these people. It says Jonah left the city and found a place east of the city where he made for himself a shelter and sat down under it in its shade to see what would happen to the city. Man, he was still, Jonah was still ticked off. He's like, I come all this way from my country, which I like. They have good restaurants. You know, they give a discount to prophets, whatever. I come to this joint, and I'm expecting you to, in 40 days, flush these people off the face of this earth, to be overthrown. I want to watch it happen. He still didn't understand what the deal was. God said, I have forgiven, I have redeemed, I have shown mercy over these people who didn't deserve a lick of it. I've redeemed them. I've given them salvation. It's not up to you to decide who deserves it and who doesn't. It's up to me. And if you think you're so perfect, you tick all the boxes, someone might come along like Jonah and say, I don't think so. God, why aren't you killing this person? God, this person smoked like a stack for 40 years. Why didn't they get cancer? Yet this person over here got cancer. My buddy Chris never smoked a day in his life. Why has he got such terrible cancer? I don't know. I don't know. One of the things that I was ticked off to God about. Young man, vibrant, great athlete. I would say good looking, but that would be weird if he's listening. But he is good looking, let me be honest with you. I can say that with a straight face. And I said straight face on purpose. That has multiple meanings, the whole straight thing. Very, very straight. I'm defending right now, right? I see a little nervousness. So Adonai, God, he prepares a castor bean plant and made it grow up over Jonah to shade his head and to relieve his discomfort. So Jonah was delighted with this plant. He said, thank you, God, for making this plant. Wow, that's awesome. It's so nice you gave me shade. So Jonah was delighted. But by the way, let me just say this. You guys know where Nineveh is, right? It's in Mosul, Iraq. It's hot. 127, 130 degrees there. Real degrees, not pretend. Not heat index. I'm talking the real deal. It's hot. You need a shade. God said, let me go and put up this castor bean plant for you. Bloop. Right? Miracle from God. Spoken of God. Let me just grow this plant up. So Jonah was delighted. But at dawn the next day, God prepared a worm which attacked the castor bean plant. So it dried up. Then when the sun rose, God prepared a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head so hard that he grew faint and begged that he could die. This dude was always wanting to die. Don't let him have a gun. Right? That's one of those people that maybe, we evaluate and say, maybe we don't give you a gun. Maybe you have a little bit of a problem because he was always wanting to die. Just kill me. And he begged that he could die, saying, I would be better off dead than alive. God asked Jonah, now this makes sense to me. Is it right for you to be so angry about the castor bean plant? He answered, yes, it's right for me to be so angry that I could die. Adonai said, you're concerned over the castor bean plant, which cost you no effort. You didn't make it grow. It came up in a night and perished in a night. So shouldn't I be concerned about the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left, not to mention all the animals? So you want me, this plant, you're mad at this plant which I made, you did nothing. I made it grow in a day and shade you, and then it died in a day. You're mad at this plant, but you want me to kill this 120,000 people. You want me to kill all them and all their animals. You want me to destroy them, whatever it is he wants to do. He says, in which there are more, shouldn't I be concerned about the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left, not to mention all the, let me just say this. The great city of Nineveh is not just referring to its large size. God is saying here, there's a statement here that's very, very powerful. I don't know if you know, but Nineveh was a jacked up place. There was crazy business going on up in Nineveh. That's why Jonah was supposed to go in the first place. And then all of a sudden now God's saving them. But Jonah was so mad at them because they weren't the right denomination. They didn't wear the right haircut. They didn't look the right way. They didn't talk the right way. Whatever the churchy religious Rottweiler thing was, they weren't doing it. And he was. And he said, hey, these people should die. I'm going to tell you what, I've been in lots of churches where there was lots of Jonahs. I have been in lots of churches, but thank God they're not given the opportunity to evaluate the fruits of my life, because they would most assuredly want me dead. Now let me say this. I just want you to understand some things. It's very, very important here. Jonah is not some nobody, right? Jonah is a prophet. He's come to be known. He's mentioned in 2 Kings 14:25. I mean, this is not a putz here. This guy's not a putz. He's the real deal. And I want you to understand the two different places where he was and where he was going were opposite directions, right? They were opposite directions. He's supposed to go here, radio audience, I'm pointing to my right, all the way to my right, but he was going this way when he got on that boat, pointing all the way to my left. He was Complete opposite, folks. He was going opposite the way, long way out of the way, trying to get away from the order of God. I'm just here to tell you this. He did that because he didn't believe that those people should be saved. He didn't believe that they should have some sort of salvation. I don't know if you know this, but thank God it's up to God and not us to decide who gets saved and who doesn't get saved. Because I know this for a fact. If that was up to some of the people that have been in my life and maybe even are in my life now, and maybe you can identify with this, they would say, spare nothing. Burn it to the ground. Burn that guy to the ground. We know him. We grew up with him. We saw him. We raised him, whatever the case may be. Whoever that person is. I know that person. Shawn, get him out of here. Burn it up. And I don't know if you know anybody in your life that would do that to you, but that's what Jonah wanted. He wanted that kind of power. He wanted God kind of power. But he wasn't God because he didn't think with the mercy and the redemption of God. Does God sometimes, and did God sometimes, wipe the earth clean? Anybody ever hear of Noah? Anybody ever hear of the flood? Anybody ever hear of all of the things that God did where he said, that's it, we're done. Your time's up. Slay them all. Kill everything, leave nothing standing. But here it is, Upper Mesopotamia. It's an Assyrian city, by the way. Nineveh, it's a Syriac word. It's on the outskirts, really, of Mosul in modern-day northern Iraq. It's on the eastern bank of the Tigris River and the capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. So, I want to get this clear in your mind. Opposite direction he's going. Nineveh is northeast of Israel, which means Jonah is heading in the exact opposite direction he needs to go. I just want you to understand, sometimes that is exactly what we do to try to get away from God because we don't like what he's telling us. But I'm going to tell you this, it's not up to us to go to some other person and tell them you're going to be destroyed. We're going to destroy you. God's going to destroy you for you. And I use this example a lot, but I'm telling you, I use it because I heard it a lot. I still hear it a lot. You don't have the right hair. You don't use the right words. You don't. You wear shorts. Listen, I can tell you right now. I know I'm preaching in shorts, radio audience. They're nice shorts. They're surf shorts, and I'm going to share a secret with you. I can go in the water with these. These are surf shorts. Right? Amen. Right? Not that I'm going to do that nowadays. But the point of it is I could. I'm wearing shorts and sandals, which are pretty Jesus-y. And then I've got just a regular surf, I don't know what kind, surf shirt. I got it down in Florida, in Cocoa Beach, at Ron John's. Got this whole outfit in Ron John's. The point of it is that I can tell you, I can think of 10 names right now of people in, air quotes, the church, that would say, Dr. Greener, that is no way for a pastor to dress. And I would look at them and go, all right, guess you're not going to call me to your church. Now, I go to another church, I'm not going to wear shorts and a t-shirt. Unless they say, hey, we're real low-key here, and I'm going to wear shorts and a t-shirt. Or I'm not wearing a t-shirt, but you know what I'm saying. But I know 10 people right now, very godly people, who would say, you have no place in the pulpit. I know people I'm related to think I have no place in the pulpit. And you know what? That's okay, because it's not their call. It's God's. But how many times have we thought we know better than God does for other people? How many times? You see, the problem was Jonah didn't want to offer God's forgiveness to these people. He had a real negative attitude about these people. Number one, they weren't all Hebrew. They weren't all Hebrew. They don't deserve this. They're not of my people. They're not my way. I want you to also focus on, go back and read this sometime. I'm trying to wrap up so I don't go over. Jonah went down to the port. Then he went down to the ship. Then he went down into the hold of the ship where he fell into a deep sleep. In literal, metaphorical, and spiritual sense, he went down as far as he could go. I mentioned before, why is this guy down in the ship? When you're asleep, you are as far removed from reality as you can possibly be. When you are asleep in the hold of a ship, you're as far down as you can. And it really It symbolizes almost being in the pit. Verse 1:9, I fear Adonai, the God of heaven, who made both the sea and the dry land. Let me tell you what. You need to understand the context here. The context is very important. In the Middle East, in the ancient Middle East, if you could control the sea, that's how we determine your God's power. If you could control the sea, your God is real. Now look, I also want to say, and I touched on this, and I don't want to finish without putting this in here. When they cried, when the ship's crew cried to Adonai, this doesn't mean they converted to be Hebrew. Doesn't mean they converted to be Christian. But they were acknowledging that it was a Jewish God who had caused the storm, and they talked to that God. Let me say this. If people are only seeing storms in your life, and they are not believers in God, but you have said or they have heard that you are a believer, and all they see are storms in your life, but never a smile, never joy, never happiness, never peace, never faithfulness. And you'll notice I left off, not that you failed once or twice, 10, 15 times, or that you weren't perfect. I left that off because that's not what they're looking at. You think they are. You think somehow or another they're expecting perfection, but they're not. But if you're always worried, if you're always gnashing your teeth, if you're always scratching a hole in your thumb from nervousness, one nail into the other, if you're always just wearing your carpet out and your shoes out, pacing back and forth, if you can't sleep at night because you're just not sure God can handle this, well, your understanding of God is just, it's messed up. It's jacked up. They acknowledged the God because they saw what he did. We have scripture. We have accounts of amazing things. We see amazing things now. Somebody asked me the other day, Dr. Shawn, why don't you pray that God will heal you? You know, do you want to die in 2 years? Or what's the deal here? I just had dear friends say to me the other night, why do you think it's God's will? Why would this be? I say, I don't ask God. Well, why don't you fight? Well, it's not like I'm running with scissors. I'm not leaning back in my chair. His will is his will, no matter what I do. I'm trying to be helpful and do all the right things and talk to the right doctor, do what they said, all that stuff. But if it's his will, it's his will. If it's not, it's not. And that, when I look at a guy like my buddy Chris, and I look at that situation, and I say, whoa, come on, God. I don't get this one. When I look at Mama Max, I look at her situation, I say, come on, God. There's a lot here I don't see, apparently. People go by what they see. They go by what they see you living in your life. In the Gospel of Matthew, when Jewish leaders asked Yeshua for a sign, this is what he said. And you can go to Matthew, I think it's 12, 39 through 42, for the whole use of the story. But this is what Yeshua said. He answers them, for just as Jonah was in the 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the depths of the earth. There we go with that pit being down. Did he stay there? Jonah didn't stay there, and neither did Yeshua. Now, I'm here to tell you this. What is it that happened that changed the situation in Jonah's life? Have you ever thought about that? What is it that happened? And the answer is that prayer. Jonah's prayer, he prayed that prayer. The prayer changed everything because God changed his mind about Jonah. And then because of what the people did, from the king down to the lowliest person, including the animals, God changed his life about Nineveh. And yet, the guy who was just saved out of that, call it whatever you want, whale, big fish, sea monster, whatever, call it whatever you want, but he changed his mind about Jonah. He could have very easily made that whale spit him out into another whale or a shark or whatever and get eaten up, melted in the stomach. I don't care. He could have done whatever he wanted. He's of no limitation. It says he created the whale. He made this. He brought this about to do this thing. Specifically, I don't know what happened to the whale or the fish. I don't know if it was good eating or not. I don't know. Somebody caught it. Hey, feed a family. What are you going to do? Feed a whole town, I guess, if it's big enough to hold a person. I don't know. But he chose to rescue Jonah. How many of us, we've pled and pled and pled, God, rescue me, rescue me. I need help. And then he helps us. And then the first thing we do is we become a religious Rottweiler when we're spit up on the land and we say, not that person. Oh, no, I don't want that person in here. It's what we do. This judgy crap, the list keeping, okay, you're doing all this. Okay, then you can be in our tribe. You can be in our tribe. We will allow you and accept that you are redeemed. By us and by God, of course. But mostly by us. Matthew 12:39 through 42. It says a lot. But verse 41, the people of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For they turned from their sins to God when Jonah preached. But what is here now is greater than Jonah. Listen, you can say what you want if you're a religious Rottweiler. You can have a real big problem with this. You can say it's just a story. It's a cool little flannel graph thing that God did to make a point. Whatever. You can say all that stuff if you want. And I've had Bible scholars say this to me all the time. Now I use more of my Bible scholar voice and words when I'm dealing with them because they don't hear anything different. But they'll argue this. So they'll argue that the author of this book never intended the reader to understand the account is historical. They say, no, it's just Jonah disobeyed, then he was delivered, the conversion of the enemy city of Israel. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. By the way, Nineveh is an enemy city of Israel. They weren't friends. They were the enemy. That was the other thing that Jonah was really ticked about. There's several reasons why the argument that it's just a story, and I'm going to give you these really quick. There's six that I can think of off the top of my head. There's no other book in the Bible that promotes itself as allegory. Number 2, Jonah is identified as a historical person in 2 Kings 14:23-25. We know he was real. Number 3, the story reads like normal historical narrative. That is, there's no there's no references indicating that this is fiction. None whatsoever. This is number 4. Nineveh was a historical city. You wonder why I told you where it is now and where it was and where it is now? Because that's a real place. It's a real place. We didn't make this up. Number 5, God's relationship to the prophet is presented as historical. And number 6, the Messiah referred to Jonah and his experience with the great fish, as well as the repentance of the city of Nineveh, as historical realities. Yeshua is telling the story, and he's quoting this as a historical account by the one who can be trusted to tell the truth. Out of my distress, chapter 2 in 3-10, it talks about, out of my distress I called to Adonai. That's the prayer. This chapter of prayer is the composite of several Davidic and other psalms in a poetic format. Jonah had great knowledge of this worship in the temple at Yerushalayim, which is Jerusalem. By the way, bully, dilly, as they say, to President Trump for moving our embassy to Jerusalem. And if you think for one moment, that those 60 people that died in the protests, air quotes radio audience, were anything less than death-worshipping, cultist terrorists, you got another thing coming. And oh, by the way, they have no problem throwing their kids into gunfire while they hold a camera in the other hand. There may be lots of people. There's a public school in New York City that had a moment of silence for the 60 people, the 60 Hamas terrorists that were killed. I'm here to tell you what the president just did is buy us some time. He may not be a Bible scholar. He may not have been raised up in the church. He may not know all the right words to say. But I'll tell you this right now. He stood in front of the whole world and said, I will stand I will stand it. I will stand with Israel. Because the Bible tells me that he who stands with Israel will be protected, and he who stands against won't. You can look at President Trump and go, look at this guy, how he lives. All right, Jonah. All right, Jonah, you can look at President Trump and say, oh, well, he doesn't live like a real Christian, Jonah. Well, he sure doesn't talk like a real Christian, Jonah. Look at that guy, how he does, Jonah. Meanwhile, he's standing in front of every religious Rottweiler that ever stood up and barked off the porch of the church and wondered why nobody's coming in. He did what previous presidents and administrations promised they would do and never did. He's busy keeping his own promises and presidents in decades and decades past. Look, I don't worship the guy, but man, does he ever deserve a high five. And then some. I'm here to tell you this, don't be a Jonah. Don't be a Jonah. For a little while in my life, I was kind of taught to be a Jonah because that's how I was raised up. Can't blame it on anybody but me. I can't blame it on my raising other than that's what I saw. That was the teaching that I had. By the way, hello, Alaska. Thank you. We're honored to have you listening today. We're proud to have you. Appreciate you sharing this. A buddy from Alaska, he always shares this. So if you're on social media, you get the link. I'll put it out there. Share it with everybody you know. Somebody needs to hear this message. I'm here to tell you, believer, whether you call yourself a Christian, whatever it is you call yourself, I'm here to tell you, stop looking at other people and going, well, checks 1 through 5, they're doing all right. But checks 6 through 155, they're not so good. Stop looking at them. Stop being the Jonah. Go tell them. And then walk away when God tells you to walk away in love. Don't stand at the edge of the city and ask God to grow a shade plant for you while you watch the destruction of the city. Don't do it. Don't stand and wait for somebody. I see it happen all the time. I'm telling you right now, it makes me sick to my stomach. I see lots of people standing there going, yeah, he'll get what's coming to them. She'll get what's coming to her. Thank God that's not the way God works. Amen. Thank you for listening. This will be posted on social media, iTunes, Spreaker. If you don't have the Spreaker app, it's free. I don't know why you wouldn't want it. We don't do any kind of, you just sign up. Anybody, how do you do it? I signed up and I forget. I have a brain injury, so it's no wonder. But you sign up, you put your name and you don't put anything else, I think, but your email, right? You put your email in there, I'm pretty sure. And that's it. We don't track you. I don't have a list of you, all that stuff. I'm not going to sell you anything. The bottom line is it's a great, great way for us to kind of come alongside you and you come alongside us, because all you have to do if you have an Android phone or if you have an iPhone, click on that little thing. It doesn't cost you a dime, and you can listen anytime. It'll remember where you are too, by the way. Well, I don't have an hour. I don't have 45 minutes. I don't have 2 hours. I don't have time. It'll remember where you are. Pretty cool. We have a desktop app too. That's free as well. We so appreciate you all helping us. We so appreciate you sending us these great messages. They're very encouraging, and I really appreciate it. So I just appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the ones that take the time to give us encouragement and to come alongside of us and to be our friend and help us stay in the fight, so to speak. Now, I said this message was dedicated. I listed all those people. Those people are facing really, really terrible things. Those people I mentioned. One dear lady, she has ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, and she just had to have a feeding tube put in today. She's been fighting it. God bless her. But today was the day, unfortunately. And as you know about ALS, it's just an unrelenting, horrible, horrible disease. And then another friend, has been diagnosed as terminal. Karen, a wonderful, wonderful lady, proceeding with faith. Pray for these people, my buddy Chris and all the others that I mentioned. Listen, this is a tough life, isn't it? Who can argue? Sometimes things are so tough. I go to hospitals and I visit people. I walk by places, and every now and then I'll walk by a room, and I believe it's God whispering to me, go in there. Oh, Lord, this isn't the right one. I know it does a different name on the door. Just go in there. Just go in there. You'll be all right. Plead ignorance. You look the part, Go in there and just plead ignorance. You look like you're ignorant. So go in there and say, oh, is this not the right room? And then just talk to the people. I can't tell you how many times that has been such a massive blessing in my life. It's such a blessing to go in and minister to people. But I'm here to tell you, some of the stories are tough. They are horrible, horrible stories. One day, God's going to set all this mess right. What a glorious day. To those that are listening around the world, we thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, for taking the time. From Florida to Maine, we thank you for listening. We thank you even all the way up to Alaska. We thank you for listening. We know you have a choice in what you do with your evening. We appreciate it. Please share this with everybody you know. God bless you. Join us next week.
Dr. Greener returns next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, he'll be working to restore your freedom and your liberty. He will engage in the collision of faith and politics for you and with you. In the meantime, remember to follow him on Twitter at the Ninja Pastor and follow him on Facebook. Dr. Greener's controversial book, Excellence Killed the Church, How Mediocrity is Destroying America, is available on Amazon and at other fine booksellers. Or you can get a copy directly through his website, www.drshawngreener.com, where you can also listen to interviews and speeches and messages free of charge. Show archives are available on iTunes through drshawngreener.com.